Hi, guys, and a warm welcome to the India Gill podcast. And I'm your host, India Gill. This is a place where real conversations take place, right? About growth and the messy yet beautiful process of becoming the best version of yourself. And totally in keeping with that, my guest today is, do you know when you meet someone and you just think, oh wow, you know what? This is a voice that more people need to hear. And in my time of knowing Breda, this is exactly how I feel about her. She's a global motivational TEDx speaker. Her TEDx talk has been graduated to a TED.com talk. She's an author. She's a CEO, a leadership coach, and she's joining us today from her native Ireland, the Emerald Isle. So, Breda, welcome.
India.
Thank
So
you
good to
so
be here with you.
Thank you so much. Because when I was just like, oh, Breda, would you come on my podcast? You were like, of course I will. And so
Of
thank you
course
so
I
much
will.
for that. I love that
I
about
think you're
you.
a legend and I love talking to people who understand people. So delighted to be here. Mad to get into it. Bring
Likewise,
it on.
we really vibe. I love that about us. So before I ask you to introduce yourself, because I don't think I've anywhere near done you justice in my introduction. Do you know, I was on a podcast last week and this chap's devised his own cards. And the card I picked, it said, and I'm going to ask you the same question. If you were a dessert breeder,
Yeah.
what dessert would you be and why?
I think it's a great question. I think I would be a fruit sorbet.
Mm. Ooh.
Because sorbet melts slowly on your tongue and it absorbs. And I think I do that to people. I give them nuggets of information that slowly sort of absorb into them and they start to think about bits and pieces I've told them or I've asked them. And slowly it starts to arrive in them and they start to progress or start to transform. And I've done that with people. So I'd say I'm a sorbet and I'd say there's fruit in there because I am fruity. I think I'm quite kind and I'm trying to help a lot of people in the world as best I can with the one life I've got. So I'd say fruit sorbet for me. What about you, India? What would you be?
Do you know, I said a similar thing when I was on his podcast. I said I'd be a bowl of cut fruit, but then I associated it with, being a therapist and Richard Schwartz and his IFS, internal family systems theory about parts theory, that we all have different parts of us. And yeah, actually, just like fruit is healthy, these different parts were actually born because to help us. They might be maladaptive now, but they were actually originally born and they came up to protect us, to help us. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like those and so many similarities there. So Breda, please introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? What's your
Yeah.
mission?
So I am a motivational speaker based in Ireland, but does talks all over the world and in all industries. My background goes I was 17, joined the Reserve Defence Forces in Ireland because girls had not been allowed in and I liked a challenge. So I went in to see how hard can this thing be. And I fell in love with the army, oddly, and I had no idea of what military life was like. I had no family in the army. I'd never been in an army barracks. And I think my curious thinking had landed me in there. But that changed my whole world and has still, has made me who I am in life, has contributed so much to what I'm now doing back in the world, what I'm giving back into the world. So I guess the first thing to hear from me is what are you saying yes to and what are you saying no to? Because that did not look like any kind of a sensible path for a 17-year-old girl to be going who didn't know anything about the army. Yet I said yes because it made me curious and because I was brave enough to do it, and it has transformed my whole world. And now it's, through me, it's transforming others. So there's your first thing for the listeners to think about. And then in the meantime, I had started a banking career. I ended up running my banking global transformation career in parallel to my army career. So I used to be in a banking suit during the day in Dublin in headquarters and running extremely intense IT culture and business process programs all over the world, which was phenomenal. And then I would get into my army boots at night. So I was going from one world where it was all about coaching, all about camaraderie, all about um, the feel of a unit in the army, to the banking world where it was all about tech and corporate and governance. So I had a fascinating 22 years running in parallel there because the Reserve Defence Forces was part-time. So I think I managed to get insights there over
Mhm.
those 22 years that I did both, um, that other people probably weren't getting, which made me really, really fascinated with human behavior. Because watching leaders in both worlds and watching the impact they were having, watching how motivated people were or were not under them, was what was fascinating me. And I needed to figure out how come this crew, are so motivated. Those people would go, take on any war for their leaders. They'd do anything for them. And over here I have corporate leaders who are not getting that kind of buy-in because they're not thinking the same way. And then I got into leadership mindsets. Then I ended up becoming an emotional intelligence coach with Roach Martin, and that was kind of what held the gel in all of it together for me, because I think if you don't understand your own emotional intelligence and you don't understand self-awareness and you don't understand vision and things like that for yourself, then there's no way you're going to be the best leader you could be. And I think that if I can get to the world and teach more people about how they can get the brilliant leadership out of them and out into the world, regardless of where they are in any company. You don't have to have the word leader in your title to be leading. And if I can get that kind of knowledge and information and education out there into these heads like that sorbet and let it absorb and let them learn and let them find ways to learn these things, I honestly think they can transform the world, because I'm doing it and they can do it. So you're doing it. It's about getting people the right knowledge. That's what it is for me, and that's my mission. I'm on a quest.
You really
So when
would.
my life is over, India, I want to have left nuggets of knowledge all over the world that I wish I had around me when I was younger. And I want to see, can I accelerate people's careers? And I want to see, can I accelerate growth in business, SMEs particularly? And I want to see, can I get cultures running that they feel alive? And that is all down to do with people's emotions, as you know.
Crikey, there's so much to unpack there. There's like so much to unpack there. Do you know, you reminded me when you were talking about, oh, a leader doesn't necessarily have to have a title, because actually someone's always watching us, and so we're modeling behavior all the time. It reminds me of Robin Sharma, and I don't know if you've read his book, The Leader Without a Title.
Yeah, follow
Is
him.
that
Yeah.
Robin Sharma? I'm quite sure it is. Yeah. Um, What do you think, like, for you personally? Can you share a moment? I've got a couple of questions here for you, which I think people tuning in would be really interested in, and I really am. Can you share a moment in your own life, Breda, when shifting your perspective led to a breakthrough in personal or professional growth?
Yeah, and I'm obsessed with perspectives, as you know, because it's part of my TED talk,
Mhm.
and that is what that's one of the things I'm trying to teach people, how to do perspective swaps. Because when you nail how to do a perspective swap, the entire journey ahead of you can change immensely. And that is what I'd love people to have, these kind of techniques that they can use as they go through their day and they can apply in their life and in their work. So definitely for me, one of the biggest learnings for me around that perspective swap piece was when I was in banking. So I was in big global teams. It was hot and heavy. It was intense. I was learning fast. We were working at pace. It was full of adrenaline. Um, and in the midst of that, I was trying to grow and I was trying to see, could I, do better for myself and get promoted even more. And I managed to do that very well. But this was the little kind of tool I think that really helped me do that. I had a spreadsheet one day and I had found a way of saving a company 5 million, and I went to talk to a mentor about it. And I put the spreadsheet in front of him on the table and I said, I think I should send this to the sponsors, the executive sponsors of this program, because I think I found a way to save 5 million. What do you think? And he said, why are you here, Breda? I said,
Why are
what?
you asking me? No, yeah.
Why are you even asking me? Of course, like that should be an obvious yes. And that is when I realized the lens that I was seeing the world
Mm.
through versus the lens he was seeing the world through were two very different lenses. And that is where I started thinking to myself, you know what? What would he do? He would do this. So I started applying if he was in these shoes or he was in this scenario, what would he do? And every time I would do that, I would be able to see the difference in what my subconscious mind was telling me and what his subconscious mind is telling him. And that is kind of how I bypassed some of
Mm.
my old conditioned programming. And that's how I learned all of this, because I understood then that he thinks totally different to me. So my mindset is way behind where it should be to be operating in this world right now. And if I want to be successful, I need that subconscious mind programming upgraded fast. But in the meantime, while I was working on reprogramming all of that, I was practicing all these perspective swaps. And then what I did, so when I got good at that, I added another layer to it called the CEO mindset. Because I got to know a lot of our CEOs in the global banks. And I realized these are brilliant people. They're fabulous leaders. They're trying so hard. And they could do with, what if I was able to turn lots of us in these organizations into mini CEOs? What if I could get a few people around the organization thinking like the CEO is trying to think? So we know the company strategy, they've communicated it. We know where they're trying to go in the market, they've communicated it. We go to town halls in our organization, we listen to all of this stuff. So we know what they're trying to get to. What about I use the perspective swap and start thinking like a CEO? And that is where I went from someone who didn't have leader in their title but began to lead regardless and influence people around me, innovate with people around me, find people who wanted to, try new things, who were looking for more, I suppose, energy and more adrenaline in their work. They wanted to be a bit more alive in the work. And I found all of them. And I used to operate like a little mini CEO. And that is what I am teaching my audiences now. And that is such an easy technique or tool to apply to what you do every day. So think like the CEO of a global company and you will think totally, totally different. So your perspective on everything will be totally different. That is something I want people to do more of for me.
It's almost like putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Like when people complain, I used to work for Richard Branson's Virgin Atlantic years ago, and
I
people
love
would
Richard
complain.
Branson. He's one of the
Yeah, I
leaders that
do.
I just adore.
Yeah, he's amazing, isn't he? Um, and really charismatic on a personal level as well. But people used to be complaining about certain things within the organization. And when they would complain to me about it, I would always think, because I don't like to complain, it's like, with leaders, they'll be like, well, if you've got a problem, then come to me with the solution to that problem. And
Yeah.
I would just say, well, if it was your business, what would your decision be then? Because, I think we just have this one perspective and it's just from ourselves. So I really like the way that you're saying, you call them, what did you call them?
Mini
Perspective
CEOs.
shifts.
Oh, yeah. Perspective swaps or
Yeah,
perspective
perspective swap.
shifts. It's like lifting the
Yeah.
lens, like one person seeing things through and applying it on
Mm.
what you're looking at.
And it reminds me of schools as well. I think we've had this conversation before about how we're taught in schools, right? So you're teaching people this now. And actually, if we shifted the way we teach in education, like if you go to a private school, little Johnny is taught, oh no, let's go to government school, and little Johnny is taught, oh, you've got 5 apples. If you take away 3 apples, how many apples have you got left? But if you go to a private school, that same child is taught very differently, and it's a small shift, but it's not apples anymore. It's like, okay, so if you've got 5 businesses and 2 of them aren't doing so well, how many of them do you see? So
Oh, big time.
I really
Big
get
time.
what you're saying there with,
Yeah.
that slight nuance, that shift. So
Well, to
important.
your point, we're not teaching the majority of kids to think about how many businesses they own.
Mm,
We are teaching the majority of people about apples. And the unfortunate thing is that when we are bringing those people into adulthood, which is where your work is and my work is with all of the adults largely, some of the younger people as well, but largely adults, they've been programmed to be thinking small, to be limited in their thinking, to be just thinking about the little piece of work that they have to do. And they're not programmed to be thinking like a CEO because they've maybe some of them haven't been around CEOs as they grew up.
mm.
Maybe they haven't been in business environments when they grew up. And but the good thing that I love about neuroscience and all of the things that both of us work in is that we now know we can reprogram anyone that wants to learn. And that to me is pure gold dust for a human. So if we have humans out there listening to this and you think you might be slightly broken, or you mightn't be just as good as you should be, or you're not your best version yet, the good news is that you can reprogram
Mm.
yourself fairly easily when you get the right knowledge. And I now have the right knowledge. India now has the right knowledge. We didn't get it in school either, but we've gone out and we've looked for it. We have it. We have it packaged. It's there. We can take it and give it to people now. And that is the best thing in the world for the likes of you and me, India, because we get to watch people transforming. And there is
Absolutely.
nothing more amazing in this world than doing that.
I think you and I have seen it started with ourselves, as Michael Jackson would say. We started with ourselves, and we
Yeah,
have transformed ourselves from, where we were then, that version of us, to the version of ourselves that we are here today, and hence us sitting here having this conversation. So you've
yeah.
already answered my next question. I was going to say, what do you think in your coaching practice have you found that holds people back? So it's kind of like a lot of it. Was it Henry Ford who said, well, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. It really ties in a lot with therapy. There's an exercise I do where I'll say, okay, so I want you to go away and write down what your ideal self looks like. Like, what are they doing? Where are they living? And just like get
Yeah,
really into the detail of it. And then slowly, let's just like, okay, that's your ideal self there. And we're
yeah,
putting that in the future. Let's chunk it back and like start stepping into that. So that's what you're kind of saying is like, let's step into that CEO mindset, no matter what you're doing, if you're a cleaner, if you're a neuroscientist, if you're a podcaster, a leadership, like whatever it is, but just let's step into that version of
yeah.
yourself. Oh, thank you for that. That's really powerful.
There's another little exercise I'd
Mm,
love your listeners to try. And I do this with a lot of my
mm.
audiences as well. So, and particularly brilliant with the young grads and the younger, earlier careers, but with anyone it works, right? And all of us should do this. So, for listeners listening to this right now, get a pen, or in your notes, in your phone, or somewhere, write your name, write comma, and write CEO, and watch how your brain reacts to that. And then do it again, right? Write your name again, comma, and write president, and watch how your brain reacts to that, because that will tell you what your subconscious mind thinks of you. For
Sure, I've
example,
done it. I've just done
eh?
it. I've just done this. I've just put India Gill and I put president next to it, and I almost felt it somatically in my body.
Yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah.
because it's your conscious mind looking at it going, wow, and it gets confused because your subconscious mind is
Mm.
kicking in going, no, you could, like, most people laugh when I make them do it, and then they look shocked. So they go from, oh my God, to, oh my God.
Such a powerful little technique there.
Isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, I think I'm going to take that into my practice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, do. And we could do that with lots of things. Like, to your point, you're talking there about, drawing up the best version of you. What would it look
Mm.
like? What would they be doing? Who would they be friends with? What would their relationships be like? What level of abundance would be in their life? I've done that in me as well. So I do that on vision boards. And
Yeah.
on vision boards is where I build that stuff out, and what a brilliant career would look like for me, what impact I would be having via a career in the world. And that's all about my legacy that I'm trying to leave behind me in the world. And that's the stuff that really will get you out of bed in the morning fairly fast. People are so, I don't know, lethargic about their lives. They're lethargic about their jobs. Everybody hates Monday mornings because they have to go back to the thing they don't like. And we really need to see, can we help them get into a place where it's all mind swaps and perspective swaps that can get you working in a way that you actually are enjoying it a lot more. And I would love to do more of that with people, because I think life is too short, and I'd love them all to have vision boards. I'd love to have that thing built out for them, because then they can figure out how to get on, more passionate about what they do every day, and a bit more aligned to their purpose with the thing they do every day, and do that for a little while till they get into the swing of what it's like to feel like you're living with purpose every day.
That ties in really nicely with when you were saying step into that version of that mindset of the CEO, no matter what you're doing. Because if you have
Yeah,
that vision of yourself like that, and I've been there as well with the whole Monday. I've never worked 9 to 5, but it was like, oh, start of the work week in a job that you're not really enjoying. But then it's like when you go there and you think, do you know what? I'm gonna be here anyway. I'm gonna do this to the best of my ability. And I think when we are really passionate about what we do, and when we like approach it with that mindset, excuse me, it really makes a difference, one, to how we feel from what you're saying. And I want to rewind a little bit. I'm hopping all over the place to your action boards, vision boards, because there's a neuroscientist, and you talked about neuroscience, called Dr. Tara Swart,
Yeah.
and he calls vision boards action boards.
Yeah.
And because she's like, well, you've got to take the action. You can't just sit there and stare at a vision board, which is tying in perfectly with what you're saying there, and the whole
Yeah.
neuroscience about, we can change our brains.
Yeah. Which
And
is the
we
most amazing
are.
thing. And I think that's the bit people don't realize yet. I don't think that knowledge is out there. Because I meet people a lot, and some of them are self-sabotaging a lot. And then they say things to me like, I'm just like that. I'm like, no, you were just conditioned like that as a
Yeah.
kid. And now you can be anything you want, but you have to want to learn, which is what I was saying earlier. Like, there is no excuse for anyone now. There is information. You have it and I have it in India. It's not hard to find now, but you've got to want better for yourself. And that's the bit that I'm not seeing enough of for people. I don't think people actually want better for themselves because I don't think they realize they deserve it. And I know that because I used to be one of them. You know what I mean? I didn't always have this information either. I would have been one of those people who thought, oh yeah, but that's for other people. And I was very happy to just survive because that's the way I was programmed to think that's what I was supposed to do. And when you start learning that actually abundance right across your life can be there for any of us in relationships, in lifestyle, and what you do work wise, all of those things, you can have abundance in everything and you should want it because you're going to be here once only. Why would you live a life not wanting abundance and quality in everything you do when you could have it? It's not logical. So we
No.
need people to sit up and start listening to this and really getting that knowledge into them that we don't teach them in school. And I think that's the conflicted piece here because people think, well, if this stuff was so important, they would have taught this to me. It doesn't
No,
work
they
like that.
really wouldn't. And it's belief,
I
isn't it?
actually think the education system hasn't
Mm.
quite become aware of the quality that they I don't even think the teachers have been trained in it, you see. So if the teachers don't understand the stuff, how are they going to teach the kids? To the government point, if the government were thinking properly about this, they make lots of taxes off entrepreneurs. And so teaching people how to think for themselves and manage emotions and build visions and be inspired by leaders around the world who are inspirational. All of that stuff. When you do that with kids, it's phenomenal. I was in a changing room in a child's theatre show last summer, and I had a female astronaut that I had been introduced to by one of the consultancies here in Dublin. Um, and she was on the Teams call from space. From
Oh,
space.
crikey.
So she was in her spaceship and she was on a Teams call with a gang of us that were associated with this consultancy. And so there were kids behind me and I said, come here, do you see this? So I was showing these children what Earth looks like from the spaceship window. And some of them, the wee boys, were just like, oh my God. The girls were kind of like, what? And then and one of the mummies actually said to me this year, one of the most amazing things that happened to me last year was watching that astronaut on your phone. And so, what does that tell us? It means we don't know what we don't know yet. Do you know what I mean? There's so much there
No.
in the world that we could be tapping into to learn, to research. And then people tell me they're bored. I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
how could you possibly be bored in this world where you have a phone that's full of information? You just have to flick into the right stuff and stop following the stuff that they're trying to feed
This
you
is it.
just to waste your hours. And you're not coming off that phone having doom scrolled, feeling any better. So start using that little phone in your pocket to change your world. That's what I did.
And there you have it. And you say another really powerful thing in one of your talks. You was about, we all hear that, the people you surround yourself is who you become. And
Yeah.
you were saying, well, have mentors. But one of the most important things you said is it doesn't have to be a physical mentor. And
Oh, yeah.
we know that we have mentors that we can learn. I mean, Joe Dispenza is a mentor of mine. I've never met him, but I follow
Yeah.
all of his work. Well, I have met
Yeah.
him, but I follow all of his work. But you said the internet is
Yeah.
actually our mentor. And that really stuck with me because I just thought, we didn't think that, right? And
Oh
it's
no.
just because of what you said, it's just like not just what they're feeding us, because I love the internet, I love social media. And because if we use it in the right way instead of it using us, if
Yeah.
you, because I don't follow my friends, because I see them, I
Yeah.
speak to them, but who, and I
Yeah.
don't want that coming up on my feed, but who I do follow is
Yeah.
people like yourself or Dr. Tara Swart or Dr. Joe Dispenza, people that I
Yeah.
can actually learn from that are going to
Do you know what
enhance.
I'd love us to
Mm,
think about? Everybody should be thinking about. Your life is short, and your time is the only commodity you cannot buy and you cannot get back.
no,
So try and be a bit more selfish and a bit more ruthless with how you use your time.
your
Because people
time.
say to me, I don't have time to learn this. Neither have I, right? And neither had I in the situation I learned this was horrific. And it was a fairly dark place in my life. And I was working and parenting around the clock. And I still managed to learn all of this stuff on the phone. I went and found it, right? So, what I'd love people to get a little bit more thinking like is your time is too precious to be sitting looking at stuff that actually makes you feel bad. You should want
Absolutely.
better for yourself because you deserve better. Everybody deserves better. Everybody was born into this world perfect, and you deserved better as you come in here as a baby. Let's forget about what way we were programmed, what environments we grew up in. We are still those humans that deserve the best. And I want abundance in as much as I can get into everybody's lives. When I say abundance, people think it's material items. Yes, material items are great. You should want them too. But I would love abundance in your relationships, your day to day life. Your life experience day to day should be abundant. And if it's not, then you're not spending time on the right things. So get selfish, get a bit more ruthless with what you spend your time on. Get quality experiences, quality learning, and quality people into your day to day experience. And if you haven't got them around you physically, get them online.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. I live in rural
Mm.
Ireland, right? And so I couldn't find people who I knew I needed to inspire my thinking and push me out of my comfort zone and teach me how to want abundance. So I went looking online and read biographies and read people's stories and found leaders in the world who have done phenomenal things despite the odds, which inspired me to do phenomenal things despite my odds.
Do you know what? You're such a great motivational speaker. I'm so inspired in listening to you. And this is why we're friends, because we are on a very similar mission. And I know you're on a tight time frame. So thank you so much for making the time today. But I quickly want to ask you a couple of questions before you go. And just personal questions. So if you could have coffee, Breeder, so I'm really fascinated by you as a person, with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
Easy. It would be you, India. Because we've never actually met in person. We feel like we have, but we've actually never hugged. We've never met in person.
No.
Easily it would be you. And that's because I love finding people who are still positive despite their odds and who
Mm,
are trying to make a difference in the world. And I really don't care about, you know, celebrities and VIPs. I don't care about labels. I care about people with integrity, people who are loyal, people who keep trying no matter how hard life gets, people who have vision, people who are trying to change the world for and make it better for next generations and for the generations and those are my kind of people. So definitely it'll be you, India. If I had a magic
same
wand.
here. You know what? Like I'm right, we are going to meet. You were in London recently,
We'll get there.
awards ceremony, but I know you were like
Yeah.
really hectic, etc. We'll get there. You know, when the time is right, we will get there. Um, thank you. I'm very honoured for you to have said that. We're both great readers. Which book has influenced your life the most, do you think?
It's a very odd, very old book called Mindset Magic.
Oh, I'm going to write that
And
down. Mhm.
yeah, it was one of the very first books I read probably 15 years ago. Betty Shine, I think it was,
Okay.
wrote it. And I still have it up on my bookshelf. But it taught me a little bit of the profoundness of our minds and our brains. And it taught me about how to feel with color. Now, I didn't know any of this. I was in banking, right? So I was doing transformation projects all over the world. So my brain was all about, you know, milestones and project plans and stakeholders and all of that, which I also loved. And the other point, just to let me finish up on the, remember we were talking about work and about people being miserable in work. There was a little thing I wanted to add in there that I had forgotten about, and it's to think about where you work. Yeah, you might not like where you work, but figure out what are the things that you are excellent at, right? And focus more on putting your energy there. Because what I'd love people to do, even when they're miserable, is to be able to still progress. Because what you don't realize is you can thrive even when you think you're just in survive mode. Because I've done it. So even if things aren't going well, you think at this point, I want you to figure out what it is you do brilliantly and what skills and natural talents you have and how you would bring those into your work environment. Not with, don't wait to be asked. Make this stuff happen, which is what I did in banks years ago. So that was just a wee bit that I wanted to add in, and I just hadn't got to it. Back to the book reading. I think reading is the only way for people to get from a place of low awareness on this sort of topic into a place where their mind starts to open. And it takes a while, right? Because your mind is quite rigid. You've been thinking the same way, whatever age we are. We've been like, I was kind of about 30 when I started kind of discovering the stuff, 33. And I had therefore been thinking the same way on my programming in my subconscious mind for about 33 years at that point. And so if we think about it like that, of course it's going to take a little while for your neural pathways to start changing slightly and
Wire,
the
yeah.
makeup of your brain to start changing slightly. So I think start reading bits and pieces about positive mental attitude. There's buckets of thought leaders in the world. Follow, like Google, who are the most inspirational leaders, the most impactful leaders in the world. Read their stories, get their audiobooks into your ears.
Biographies, yeah.
Start, yeah, get all that into those fabulous brains of yours. Everybody's got a fabulous brain, and most of them think they're stupid. I'm like, you're far from it. You've just not been taught how to use your neurons. You've not been taught how to light them up. You don't understand that your brain needs learning to let it light up. It needs to find topics that really interest it and let it light up. You don't understand that you do.
Absolutely.
So,
And to utilize different
yeah,
parts of your brain. Do you know, when you do different things, when you do hard things that you haven't done before, you're using different parts of your brain in line with what you're saying, different parts of
it
your
needs
brain
it.
light
Your
up.
brain
Yeah.
actually needs it. So, if the next time someone's listening to this and say you think you're bored, it means you're not learning. Get Googling for us. Me and India want you Googling. We want you research and we want you listening to audible books and podcasts and stuff like this. And we want to see can we get your dopamine up because that's all that you need. You don't need to go and get validated by anyone else. You just need to let your brain do the things that's good for it.
Love that. One last question for you before you go. Do you know, we can learn so much from you, and I'm going to ask you in just a moment to tell us where people can connect with you. But what do you think, Breda, is the best advice that anyone's given you? Because you've got so much to, impart and teach and coach on, as we've seen just a little nuggets of it in this session. But what's the
Yeah.
best advice that anyone's ever given you?
Yeah, I kind of think quotes and mantras change people's lives. They've certainly changed mine. But one of
Mm,
the biggest piece of advice that I heard on something that I was listening to on the internet many years ago was, why not you? And that just made me stop and think, actually, why not then? Where's the evidence that I should not be trying to get like all of this abundance into my life? Where is the evidence that says that I can't be the person who changes the world for other people? Where is the evidence? There's no evidence. It's all limited thinking. And you are not the product that you grew up in. You are not that product anymore. You can be anything you want because you can change your brain. You can rewire it. You can give it better things to think about. You can feed it better data. You can pick people to be around, whether that's online or not, that become those 5 people that influence you in a way that makes you start to understand that you are fabulous and you deserve the best. And why not you?
why not you, indeed? And I'm so glad that you're one of my 5 people.
Definitely.
Because, yeah,
Definitely.
because I don't even think that you know that sometimes just in the conversations that we've had, you've kicked my butt, and I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, and I've really reflected on it afterwards. Super, thank you. So, Breda, where can people find you? Like, where can they, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you online? Or
So some of my talks are on YouTube, but
Mhm.
I probably put a lot of small pieces up. I do brief bite-sized videos on LinkedIn and
I love that.
Instagram because I'm trying to give people tiny nuggets to think about in their busy day. So that if they happen to open the phone, they get a little bit of a nugget. Or they'll see me talking about something that might just inspire their thoughts a little bit. Because this is how you do this. You can't go from, thinking a certain way one day to thinking a totally different day in the next day. It takes a lot of time. And so I'm trying to infiltrate people's lives and thinking all the time by putting stuff up on social media. They say social media is bad. Yet for me, it has been life changing because I can express myself there. I can teach people there. Plus, I've learned from others who have done this before me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, so everyone, that's where you can find Breda. Thank you so much, because I know your schedule is hectic, and even this chat here is relatively brief because you've got appointments. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. And if you're new here, welcome. I hope that our chat here today has given you something to reflect on, something to take forward, and something to reflect on, as in how can you do the things differently? Because as Breda's been sharing with us, abundance is your birthright, is what she's essentially saying. We're not trees, we're not stuck. We can move. Ignorance is a choice today. We have everything, all of this information and knowledge at our fingertips. So if you've liked this session, if it's landed with you, please follow, subscribe, and share with someone that you care about. I drop these episodes on the first of every month, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you again next month. And in the meantime, lead with love, approach everyone and everything with curiosity, including yourselves.